Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle. This is the latest episode of New Music Friday, where I talk about the biggest prog news headlines of the week, give you some updates on my channel and what you can expect, and just general talking about music and having fun, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the series. So today is Friday, February 4th, 2022, and I feel like it's an interesting mixture of news this week. I feel like over the past several weeks I've kind of been talking a lot about the same bands. I've been talking a lot about Big Train, talking a lot about Jethro Tull, artists that have these big albums that have just come out or are coming out soon. But I feel like there's some interesting kind of different news items this week that might be of interest to some of you out there who maybe don't follow the bands that I have covered lately, but follow a lot of other prog bands. So I don't know, just kind of an interesting smattering of news today. So headline number one is that there's a new trailer out for the new upcoming King Crimson documentary, In the Court of the Crimson King. Now this looks really interesting. This is a project I didn't really know anything about, but it's an upcoming documentary about the band King Crimson, kind of interviewing their band members from past and present, talking about, of course, the development of King Crimson and where they're at, and kind of just musing about things regarding the band and music in general and the prog scene, I imagine. The trailer's pretty fun. I would recommend checking it out if you're a fan of King Crimson. A lot of big members from the band, past and present, of course. Robert Fripp is in there, of course. Bill Bruford. All of the big people that you'd expect seem to be participating in this. So it looks like director Toby Amies is helming the film. It's debuting in March at South by Southwest, and it includes footage from the band's 2018 and 2019 tours, along with interviews featuring members from throughout their 54-year history. So should be a pretty inclusive amount of guests and a lot of musicians and people who've been involved in King Crimson. So it just sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of humor even in this little trailer from the different members. There's kind of funny quotes that you can already pull out from this little trailer, so it should be kind of a fun experience to I'm interested in this documentary and what it entails. So it seems like it's a lot focused on kind of their period of live performances and working in 2018 to 2019. Fripp says about his thoughts about the film. He calls it a grown-up documentary showing the lives of King Crimson's working players during 2018 to 19, the rock and roll lifestyle of glamour and excess and fine detail, including getting on and off buses, living and dying, resentment, a little humor, and even some music. So it sounds like it's a fun time. Should be interesting for all of you King Crimson fans out there. So the trailer is really great. I recommend you check it out. I'll put it in the description. Thought that was really cool. I know a lot of people who watch these shows are King Crimson fans. I admittedly am not a huge King Crimson fan, but I appreciate them. I know that they're a huge notable band in the prog realm, so definitely respect them and what they do, and I like a lot of their different albums, but their career as a whole, for me it's a little bit of a mixed bag in some respects, but that's just me personally. I know a lot of people love and respect their entire career and their whole discography. So item number 2 of the headlines, Steven Wilson announces his autobiography limited edition of 1. I kind of mentioned this briefly in kind of this catch-all Steven Wilson update that he did at the beginning of the year, but now there's kind of more details, and this is kind of its own standalone announcement now for his autobiography. This book comes out on April 7th. It's definitely available for pre-order in different versions and varieties, of course, as usual. It has an interesting subtitle to it, How to Succeed in the Music Industry Without Being Part of the Mainstream. I think that's a pretty good summary of Steven Wilson as an artist, that he's very successful as an artist, but he definitely stays out of the mainstream realm, and does his own thing, takes in his own influences, and it's kind of remarkable that he's been able to make such a great career in music without being this big kind of household name in the mainstream music world, and that he's able to kind of follow his own passions and do what he wants to do and not have to sacrifice that for being on radio or being someone massively popular who might have to make certain sacrifices to their artistic integrity if they want to sell records or whatnot, but he is very genuine and does what he wants to do, whether the fans embrace it or not, but I think whatever he does is genuine, not for the purpose of selling out and like trying to make a load of money and become a mainstream artist. I think he has a lot of artistic integrity in my mind. So I think this is going to be an interesting book. I really love Steven Wilson. He's one of my favorite artists, and I'm always fascinated with what he has to say and talk about. He has a lot of interesting insights into music. He's such a music fan himself, and he has such eclectic tastes, from mainstream artists to more obscure artists and kind of everything in between. And all of it plays a role and is an inspiration for him in different ways. So the book, it says, Steven Wilson says that the book was written under no rules philosophy with the collaboration of legendary rock biographer Mick Wall. In addition to containing autobiographical material, it has a lot of my broader ideas about music, as well as lists and discussion chapters on the kinds of things I get asked a lot, and some that I don't. So he's kind of going a little bit deeper into this. He's not doing the stuff that everyone already knows about, which, a lot of the stuff with Porcupine Tree and so forth, I think that history is pretty well documented, but he's trying to get into some of the more, intricate things that people may not know behind the scenes and that kind of stuff. And there's going to be a supplementary CD with audio illustrations of some of the things he talks about in the book. So kind of a musical component as well, at least for the limited deluxe version, including some early recordings of his early attempts at electronic music, some unreleased demos from the beginnings of No Man and Porcupine Tree. So should be some cool stuff if you're a big Steven Wilson fan. Should be a cool package with a lot of interesting materials and interesting writing. I'm interested to delve in and find out more behind the artist. That's always a fascinating thing, to find out more behind these artists and what makes them tick and kind of what inspires them. And I think this could be a great look into that for one of the great modern prog artists that I really love. Headline number 3, very quickly. There's a part 2 that was released of the interview with Nick DiVirgilio, Neil Morse, and Ross Jennings, where they talk about Troika, the album coming out. The album comes out February 25th. It's very much a singer-songwriter type album, not really in the prog realm, but of course these are all prog musicians that are most well known for their work in the prog world. But I think it's interesting that they're doing something quite different this time around and really embracing the kind of singer-songwriter side, the big 3-part harmonies and stuff. So it was really cool to hear them talk about it in this interview. And so I just wanted to point your attention to part 2. Apparently it's going to be a 3-part interview, so there's already been part 1 and part 2. They talk about the inspiration behind the songs, what brought them together as a group, and kind of their plans and stuff moving forward as such. So a lot of cool stuff there. Their album is available to pre-order, of course. Should be a cool one, and one that I'll definitely be talking about. So I just wanted to mention that as item number 3. Item number 4, another kind of interesting thing I wanted to discuss that I saw the other day. Of course, I'm a big fan of the record label Inside Out. I think they're kind of one of the premier progressive rock labels right now that are home to lots of these bands that I talk about. They really cover, the Flower Kings, a lot of the Neil Morse related stuff, all these big prog bands, a lot of them are part of this label. So whenever they reach out to a new artist and bring them aboard on their label, that makes me pay attention that this could be a band to watch in the future. So the new band, I believe, I'm not sure totally how to pronounce this, but Velcrocranes, a new Russian band, has been signed to Inside Out, and they're going to be releasing their debut album, What If I Die, on April 29th. So coming up in a couple months here. There's a little tiny trailer teaser kind of thing that features some of their music, under a minute long. It's hard to really get a sense of what they're about, but to me, I think they're probably more in the modern, heavier kind of side of the progressive spectrum, maybe like a Porcupine Tree or something along those lines. So definitely something to look out for if you like that kind of style, kind of maybe the heavier side of like Riverside or something like that. could be the type of lane that they occupy. It says here in an article I read about their background, they started out as a small jazz ensemble, created originally for practice, and it wasn't until they discovered the music of Porcupine Tree and the malleable world of prog rock that their true sound came into focus. So obviously there's some jazz maybe influences that could be interesting, and then obviously an influence with Porcupine Tree. So they've released an EP, I believe, in 2017, or 2018 rather. So that could be a good indication of their sound. I haven't listened to that yet, but this is their debut full-length album that's going to be coming out on Inside Out Records. Really excited to check it out and see what it sounds like. Maybe it could be something to look out for if you like the types of artists that tend to be on the Inside Out record label. So that's why I wanted to make sure to mention it. I thought that would be cool to point your attention towards, of something that could possibly be fun in the future. And item number 5, the last headline, I just barely saw this pop up. There's a new Marillion single called Murder Machines from their upcoming album An Hour Before It's Dark. The new album comes out March 4th, so about a month away from the album. This single should be available on all the streaming sites. I watched it on YouTube. I'll definitely put it in the description. It's a really nice track. It's kind of, indicative of their modern sound, I think. It kind of is a little bit slower paced and kind of a ballad feel, but very impassioned, very, has a lot of feeling to it and a lot of emotional heft, as they're usually bound to do. It sounds like this is kind of a track that was inspired by the pandemic. Steve Hogarth talks about the track, saying, "I tried not to write about the virus, but it's been so much a part of life for the past 2 years that it kept creeping in. The terrifying reality that to wrap my arms around a father or mother could ultimately kill them gave birth to this song. The lyric was then developed to hint at jealousy and heartbreak, the pain of watching the woman you love embrace another man, or the emotional murder of the serial adulterer, and of course the arms of the superpowers and the psychopaths who sometimes have their fingers on the trigger. Beware the murder machines." So kind of started with an inspiration from the pandemic, but led maybe down darker paths behind what the lyrics are about. So definitely a track to check out. Should be a really good album that's coming out. I'm planning, this will be pretty far in the future, so it's probably a little early to talk about it, but I do believe I'm going to plan on a kind of Marillion album rankings of a sort in the future, in a few months' time. I'm not as familiar with the Marillion catalog, but it's one I've always been fascinated and interested in. I feel like my experience with their music has been a little bit spotty. I like certain albums, others I don't care for. I know that they're kind of a band that I should like because I like a lot of the bands that circle around them, but I haven't really done a deep dive into their whole catalog, and I thought now would be a cool time with this new album coming out, and just because I have some measure of interest in their sound throughout the years. So it's probably a slow project that I might do throughout the next 3 or 4 months or something, listening to all their albums one at a time and kind of letting them digest and get my thoughts on it. So, but before that, there's going to be other bands that I'm going to do some rankings for. Jethro Tull coming up in a few weeks, I hope. And then I'm going to do a Flower Kings album rankings that I'm pretty excited about to coincide with their new album coming out in March. So those are kind of jumping into some things to look forward to for the channel. As for this week on the channel, I thought it was a really strong week. As usual, great Jana Reacts. We reacted to Alan Parsons' project, which was a fantastic one. A lot of people in the comments are really excited about that one. I've heard a lot of people say, you should react to the full album. We usually don't do full albums. I think that's a little bit much to put Jana through, perhaps in one sitting, but it would be cool to revisit it, or at least maybe not on an episode, but in our own timing. I think we even talk about in the episode that we want to listen to the rest of that album because it was fantastic. So that was iRobot that we listened to, the first track, and then we moved right into the next song on the album as well. So really a fun little reaction there that we did. And then I did a review of Welcome to the Planet by Big Big Train. Really great reception. I was really grateful for people's comments and for the views that it got. I think people are enjoying that review. I've seen some people post it online and such, and so that's really appreciated. I really love the album. I really think it's great, and I keep listening to it, and I'm kind of addicted to it in a sense, so it's a really great one. I was probably a bit over the top in my praise of it. That's what I tend to do in my reviews, but you know, I'm just passionate about music and I want to share it. So that's kind of the vibe that you're going to get from me. So hopefully you guys appreciate that I'm just really positive and happy about music, and I want to share that positivity and fun. So that's kind of what happened on the channel recently. Beyond that, coming up, there's going to be a lot of Jethro Tull content coming. You know, I'm pretty excited about it. Jethro Tull isn't a group that I'm massively familiar with, besides the couple of like strong prog albums that they did, but I'm really diving into their whole catalog. But first, you know, there may be a Jana Reacts that kind of leans towards Jethro Tull. I don't know if I want to totally spoil it, but coming up shortly is a reaction that might be in that realm, so that should be fun this Sunday. Then I'm going to do a personal review of The Zealot Gene, which is the latest Jethro Tull album, so that'll come out this upcoming week. I'm going to dive deep into it and kind of give my thoughts and opinions about it. And then the following week, I'm going to do a full-on album rankings of the entire catalog and kind of slot Zealot Gene into that album rankings and kind of go through each of the albums. And like I said, this is kind of I'm not coming in as a very huge Jethro Tull fan. These are albums, many of which I only heard for the first time doing these album rankings, especially things like from the 80s onwards, or just albums I'd never heard of. So it'll be a lot of just really early impressions and things from me, so hopefully you guys appreciate those. So I'll probably run through the albums fairly quickly until I get to the end and do some of the last ones a bit lengthier, the ones that I really love in the top 10 or so. But it should be a fun show. I'm still figuring it out and still, getting my order set up. It's kind of difficult, but making it work. So those are the things you can expect to be coming. A lot of new albums coming out as well down the line, not too far from now. There's a new DiVirgilio Morse Jennings album, Troika, coming out, the new Flower Kings album coming out. There's an album from Jonas Lindberg that I've heard is really good from different reviewers. So these are all albums I would expect to see an album review. Marillion's new album, like I mentioned, is also a big one. So the next month or two should be a pretty big month with a lot of new releases. Star One as well from Arjen Lucassen. So just a lot of cool new prog music. I'm really excited. It's just a really cool time to be a prog fan, and there's just lots of cool stuff coming down the line. So hopefully you guys are excited about something and are excited for my shows and to kind of see me talk about some of this stuff. So that's it for my show. It was a little bit of a light news week, I felt, but I tried to pull out some interesting things, and hopefully you guys appreciated some of these headlines and items. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. I'd love to gain more subscribers and to have people on board to kind of build up more support and more knowledge about the prog genre. And I'm happy to share my opinions and share my taste with you guys. I'm really thrilled about the progress of the channel, and I'm grateful for all of you guys for your comments, for all of your positive vibes that you've given me. And I love that I'm building such a positive community. That's really what I was going for. I want people who are positive about music and are happy to share what they love, and that's really what it's all about, just enjoying the music, being positive, and sharing in what we love. So thank you guys so much. Hopefully you guys have a great week out there, and hopefully I'll see you guys in an upcoming video. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.